say first, thank you to all who are here, and thank you to Rabbi Dr. Elie Abadie. We are very excited to have you back here today. It's really important to make sure that people understand the customs and the concepts and the history behind Passover, especially since Pesach is the holiday of telling the story and telling our history, and you're supposed to be reliving the history. And so we need to understand how we're doing that and how it fits into our heritage. So that we found that this class is an extremely important one. And so thank you very much for agreeing to teach it to us. And on behalf of the Jewish Unity Through Diversity Institute and Jeannie Milgram and Reconnectar, we are very pleased to have you speaking for us today. So thank you. Again, please do, those who are participating today, your cameras and microphones are off. Please put into the chat any questions or Q&A, any questions or comments you may have. I'm going to let Rabbi Abadie speak, but if I need to interrupt in the middle, I will. Generally, we'll let the class go, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers at the end. Please continue to participate through the chat and Q&A, and I will give a brief introduction because Rabbi Abadie has a huge resume, so I'm just going to say a little bit. First of all, doctor is a medical doctor, so I want to make sure that we understand that he has a profession in addition, and a very thriving profession as well as a medical doctor. But he himself hails from a long, distinguished rabbinic lineage dating back to 15th century Spain and Provence, sorry. He himself was born in Beirut, Lebanon, and grew up in Mexico City. And he is the founding rabbi and spiritual leader of the Edmond J Safra Synagogue and the founder and rabbinic advisor of the Moise Safra Center in Manhattan. And for those who don't know, most recently, he was working in the UAE, in the Emirates. So lots to talk about, lots to hear about, but we're going to focus today on Pesach. So feel free to add anything that you felt that should have been added there. There's so much there, like I said, but please feel free to introduce anything that you think should be there. I'm going to hand over the floor to you. Thank you, Rabbi Abadie.
Thank you, Drew. It's always a pleasure to be in your programs. And thank you for the introduction. As you said, this is more about the class of Pesach than about introducing me. But that was sufficient. Thank you so much. So I'm going to speak about certain concept of Passover, of Pesach, and then some practical ideas of how we can get to celebrate Pesach. So first of all, let's hear some historical introduction. As you know, our ancestors were in Egypt, were enslaved, were in Egypt for 210 years. Now, counting from Isaac, our forefather, was 400 years, but 210 years in Egypt physically. And out of those 210 years, 80 to 90 years were of slavery. And so Moses came to the scene, asked Pharaoh several times to let my people go, let the Israelites leave, and he would not let them leave. The Egyptians suffered 9 plagues until this moment. In a sense, after 9 plagues, the 10th one was coming, and that was supposed to be the plague of the firstborn. Before that plague took place, in a sense, the Almighty God prepared Moses, and the Israelites to get ready to leave, because he knew that after the 10th plague, Pharaoh and the Egyptians will basically expel the Israelites out of Egypt out of desperation because of all the 10th plague, specifically the last one, which is the plague of the firstborn, killing of all the Egyptian firstborn. So on the beginning of the month of Nisan, which was an Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which we just celebrated this past Sunday, but 3,300 years ago in Egypt, it was 2 weeks before they left Egypt. So God tells Moshe to sanctify the first month of the first day of the month of Nisan, which will be the month of miracles, as its name called Nisan, from the word Nes, a month of miracles, and preparing, in a sense, the people to get ready to leave Egypt at the spur of the moment. And on that first day of the month of Nisan, God instructs Moshe, and that could be found in the book of Shemot, Exodus, chapter 12. It's an entire chapter about that month and also about the holiday of Passover. So the instructions of the holiday of Passover really came before Passover took place, before they left. It was at least 2 weeks before they left that the Almighty God instructs Moshe and Aaron to tell Bnei Israel how to prepare themselves. And in fact, on that chapter, it says specifically, this will be your holiday of Passover, of Pesach. So before any action of Pesach, and I will see what that means, that term was already used by God, told to Moshe, to Moses, and Moses to the Israelites, that this holiday will be known as Pesach, and specifically based on the Pesach, Korban Pesach, or the Paschal lamb offering that took place the day before Pesach took place. So this was, as I said, 2 weeks before. Now they were instructed that on the 10th of the day of the 10th of the month of Nisan, they should take a lamb and they should tie it to their bedroom, to their doors, so the Egyptians can see that. Why he wanted the Egyptians to see that? Because the lamb was one of the deities of the Egyptians, and the Almighty wanted that the Israelites would have the courage and the faith in God that they are here tying and eventually slaughtering the deity of the Egyptians to show them that this is idol worship and it's not good. And therefore, there's only one God that we worship and we follow. So they took a lamb, they tied it to their posts, and on the 13th day of Nisan, which was the day before what we call now Pesach Mizrahi, the Egyptian Passover, which is different than the regular Passover that we keep today, they slaughtered that lamb and they ate it amongst the families. And we're going to speak a little bit more about it in a second. And they were told also that from the blood of that lamb, they should put on their doorposts where they live. The question is, was it outside the doorpost in the outside or doorpost in the inside? And the answer is, it was in the inside, not the outside. Interestingly, because the thought was always that God needed to see that blood on those doorposts to say, oh, this is a Jewish home, let me skip it. But we know very well that God does not need those signs. He knows where Jews live and where Jews don't live. The blood was for us, for the Jews, for the Israelites inside their home, to see the blood and to recognize we are going to be free imminently. We are worshiping only our God, and the God of the Egyptians is nothing to us, and the Egyptians cannot do anything to us. That blood seen from the inside was to give confidence to the Israelites. It was to give them courage and to give them faith in what they are doing. We are told also that this blood was a mixture of the blood of the animal, of the lamb, and the blood of circumcision, because for decades the Israelites in Egypt were not circumcised. And for them to be able to eat from the Korban Pesach, from the Paschal lamb offering of Passover, they needed to be circumcised. So all males were circumcised a few days before, and to be able to participate and to celebrate in the Paschal lamb, the Korban Pesach. That same night, as the Israelites were eating the Paschal lamb in their homes and awaiting the imminent news that they're leaving, that's when the plague of the firstborn took place in Egypt, where all the Egyptian firstborn, from Pharaoh's son to the son of the prisoner in prison, even the firstborn of all the animals in Egypt perished that night. And if we are told that even if Egyptian firstborn may have gone to a Jewish home to hide, he was struck by that plague. Or if there were Jews living amongst the Egyptians, and there was a firstborn Jew, nothing happened to him. So it happened only to the Egyptians in the land of Egypt, throughout the entire borders of Egypt. Now, as to the definition of word Pesach, we said that the word Pesach was used even 2 weeks before what happened, but Pesach in Hebrew comes from the word pasah, lifsoah, which means to skip, to pass over. So indeed, the English name Passover is very appropriate for the holiday because it explains exactly what happened. God told Moses that I will pass over the homes of the Israelites, and I will only strike the homes of the Egyptians with the plague of the firstborn. So Pesach comes from the word pasah, to pass over. And once that term was used 2 weeks in advance, in a sense, now it took place eventually. So to understand that this holiday of Passover was not a fortiori holiday, which means the name of it came after the fact, but it was a priori. The name came before the fact. The name was given by God to Moshe, to Moses, to the Israelites 2 weeks in advance, that's what's going to be happening. That's what's going to be named, the holiday and the offering. There's also another interpretation of Pesach. You could take the word Pesach, Pe-Samachet, and divide it into two. Pesach, which means a mouth that converses. And so this gives us in a sense, the responsibility or the explanation of what Pesach should be all about, at least that night of the Seder. Our mouth should be conversing on the story of Passover. A parent should tell his children or her children about the story of Passover and all what happened and all the miracles that happened and how God would, with an outstretched hand, so to speak, and the might of him was able to take us out of Egypt. So again, Pesach could be as a Pasach, to Passover, or Pesach, which means a mouth that is conversant in what's happening in Passover. As you know, because of the Egyptian plague of the firstborn and the Israelite firstborn were spared, we have the concept of Ta'anit Bechorot, the fast of the firstborn male. Throughout history, that fast usually takes place the day before Passover, which means that eve, that morning, if you will, before the Seder night. And it's called Ta'anit Bechorot, the fast of the firstborn. However, since it's a month of Nisan, it's a happy month, and since the eve of Passover, then what we can do is we do what's called a siyum, a conclusion of a tractate of Talmud. And once the conclusion is a happy occasion, we serve a happy festive meal after that conclusion. And the fast of the firstborn can be annulled if a person participates in that conclusion and that festive meal. Now, it doesn't have to be a conclusion. If there is a Brit Milah that day, then that meal is considered a festive meal and a person can eat it, and that will absolve him. Or if there is a wedding, or if there is a bar mitzvah and anything like that, that it's a meal considered a mitzvah meal, a meal of celebratory meal, then that meal can be considered good enough to annul the fast of the firstborn. So we spoke about the slightly about Korban Pesach, the offering of Passover. And now we're going to speak about basically the requirement of it. So of course, the Shabbat before Pesach is known as Shabbat HaGadol, because that was the day in Egypt. In Egypt, that was the day that they took the lamb and they put it aside. So it was known as Shabbat HaGadol, the great Sabbath, for many reasons, arguably. One of them is because of the great miracle that nothing happened to the Israelites that Shabbat, in which they took the deity, the God of the Egyptians, in front of them. They tied it, and then later on they slaughtered it after that, right? And nothing happened. The Egyptians did not protest, did not attack the Jews. So that's believed to have been a great miracle, that they saw their own God being slaughtered, so to speak, or at least being attached, and they did not do anything. Now, a person who participates in the eating of that korban can only be a Jew, a circumcised Jew, male, female, the whole family participate in that korban. the person has to be tahor, has to be that has not touched a cadaver for 7 days, because he needs 7 days to purify themselves in a mikveh. Usually the korban, the lamb, is big. It has to be divided amongst families, that they all eating it together in the same house. And usually a person needs to eat at least 1 ounce of that meat to fulfill the responsibility of participating in Korban Pesach. So they used to divide that animal after it's being grilled and roasted completely, the innards and the outside of the animal, and they would eat it on the night of Pesach. So therefore, we have what's called Pesach Mizrahi, Passover of Egypt, and the Passover after Egypt that we celebrate today. It's called Pesach Ledorot, Passover for generations to come. So Passover in Egypt was only that night. Only that night was Passover. And that same night after, because in early morning, right, even before that, by midnight, the plague of the firstborn took place. Egypt was up in arms and crying and screaming and wanting the Israelites to leave, to the point that Pharaoh and his servants and his ministers went around the Jewish neighborhood looking for Moshe, for Moses and Aaron, to tell them, get out of this country, get out of Egypt, you and everybody, take everybody that you want to take. Because prior to that, Pharaoh was not allowing everybody to leave. He either would allow the male, or then he would allow the adults without the children, or then he would allow the children, but he would never allow the cattle to go with them. This time he says, go, leave, take everything that belongs to you, all your animals, everything, and leave this country. That was at midnight. Moshe responded to Pharaoh, we will leave in the morning, because we don't want to run away at midnight like a bunch of thieves. We want everybody to see us leave, that we are leaving from our own volition. And that's exactly what happened. So the Pesukim, the verses, when it comes to Pesach, basically says that for 7 days you shall not eat leavened bread, and for 7 days you shall eat matzah. Matzah is the unleavened bread. So what is unleavened bread, or what we call hametz? What is hametz? Right? Is everything hametz? Of course not. So here is the definition, the exact definition of what hametz is. Hametz is the product of the flour of 5 types of grain: wheat, barley, oats, spelt, and rye. You have any of those grains, either the grain itself or the flour of it, you mix it with water, only water, and you let it rest for 18 minutes to rise. Once that happens, that's what you have as hametz. That's hametz. Now, if any of those 3 are missing, then the product is not hametz. For example, if you use, instead of wheat, barley, oats, spelt, and rye, rice, corn, quinoa flour, tapioca, sesame flour, or any other flour, bean flour, lentil flour, any of those flours, you mix them with water and you keep them for 18 minutes, they're not going to become hametz at all. Only these 5 grains can become hametz. Also, as I said, you need 3, those 5 grains, either one of them, water, only water, and 18 minutes. If you take any of those flours, wheat, barley, oats, spelt, and rye, and you mix them with other liquids, not water, for example, oil, pure juices without water added, just the pure juice, milk, eggs, even blood, wine, or honey, you need the dough or the flour of these with only these liquids, not water, and they will not become hametz. Even you leave them more than 18 minutes, they will not become hametz. Only water is going to make that hametz, and I'll explain it in a second why. And also you need 18 minutes. Anything less than 18 minutes, if you take flour of any of these 5 grains with water, only water, and you knead it and bake it in less than 18 minutes, then it's still not hametz. That's actually the matzah that we eat. It's exactly that. It's the flour of either wheat, barley, oats, spelt, and rye, We knead it with water, and we finish baking it in 18 minutes. Everything has to be done in 18 minutes between the mixing of the flour, the kneading it, and baking it. If it's done in less than 18 minutes, then it's not hummus. That's actually, as I said, the masar. So why do we need 18 minutes, and why do we need water, and why do we need these grains and nothing else? Like I said, rice, corn, quinoa, any of other flours, not of these 5 grains, even if you mix it with water, you keep it rising for a day, is not going to become hummus, because you need these exact 3 type of requirements: the 5 grains, the water, and 18 minutes. And I'll tell you why. These 5 grains have 2 special enzymes. Those enzymes break water into, you have water is made out of 2 hydrogen molecules and 1 oxygen molecules. As it breaks the water, it creates hydrogen gas alone, and it creates also carbon dioxide, right? Both of those gases rise. So those enzymes that break the water and together with the dough create hydrogen and create carbon dioxide, it will cause the dough to rise. And that's exactly what hummus is, the rising of the dough. That's why we call it the leavened dough that has leavened. Why 18 minutes? Because it takes like 18 minutes for those enzymes to work on the mess. So that's why if you have grains other than these 5 type of grains, if you have any of those, the rice, corn, and quinoa, they don't have these enzymes. That's number 1. If you're using these 5 grains without the water, but other liquids, also they don't become hummus. Why? Because you need the water to break down the water molecules to create that gas to rise. And you need 18 minutes. Anything less than 18 minutes, the enzymes are not gonna work enough. They need more than 18 minutes to create that breakage of the water molecule and the rising of the leaven. So that's exactly what hummus is. Now, a lot of food that we have, I know we all know that the bread, kak, cookies, they all hummus 100%. But you may have products that they're not 100% hummus, but they have some percentage of them hummus. Of those, of course, that is also prohibited to eat in Pesach. Any of the chocolates that might have some crackers within them, but you have a lot of chocolate around, that's hummus. Any product that has any of those ingredients that went through water and through 18 minutes, it becomes hummus. So now that we know what hummus is, and now that we know that we can't have hummus, we cannot eat hummus, there are two prohibitions, which I'll speak about them in the next number 9. So bedikat hummus. So therefore, since we are not allowed to have hummus in our property, we're not allowed to eat hummus, we're not allowed to own hummus. Therefore, we need to search. That's called bedikat hummus, to search for the hummus. Our homes, our offices, our cars, storage places, every place that hummus might have been there, even in our clothing. Sometimes when we have a nice kak, as you said, or cookie, sometimes you put it in our pocket and we forgot to take it out, or we eat part of it, or you have a lot of crumbs of it in the pockets. All those pockets need to be cleaned. So we have to make sure that we clean every part of the house, our office, our cars, any storage places, even our clothing that have pockets that hummus might have been there. We may have put hummus in there. All of that has to be cleaned before the eve of Passover. In fact, before, not at night, the morning. So if this year Passover is actually Saturday night, we need to do all the cleaning before Friday. Now, as we are very diligent in cleaning our hummus from our homes, offices, places, then there is a ceremony called bedikat hummus, actually, searching of the hummus, that we do it the night before Passover. So since most likely we will not going to find any more hummus at home because we already cleaned it completely, we made sure to clean it completely. So therefore, when we say a blessing to burn the hametz that night and start searching for it, we usually put 10 pieces of bread, small pieces, less than an ounce each, around the house in a very known places that can be seen. And then we recite the blessing, we take the candle or flashlight, and we go around and pick up those pieces of hametz. That is instead of what's called ceremoniously considered as bedikat hametz, as we have searched for hametz. And of course, the blessing is, before we do that ceremony, is al bi'ur hametz, bless you God, Master of the universe, who has commanded us to burn or discard or destroy hametz. That's what it means. Now, why do we have to do that? We understand we're not allowed to eat hametz, but why do we have to be so meticulous in cleaning all our properties from any hametz that shouldn't exist? That's because of two verses in the Torah that teaches us two commandments. They're known as negative commandments, which means it says, thou shalt not so and so. We have what the first one called bal yera'eh. Bal yera'eh, because the pasuk says, velo yera'eh lecha hametz, velo yera'eh lecha seor bechol gebulecha. That you should not see, right, hametz, and you should not see leavened product in all of your boundaries and all of your property. So we learn from here that she'asur shehametz yeh nir'ah mirshuto, that hametz, leavened product, cannot be seen in your property. Cannot be seen in your property. So you cannot see the hametz in your property. So you have to get rid of it. Now we have a second commandment. It's called bal yimaseh. And that is from the pasuk again, Shivat yamim seor lo yimaseh bebatechem. 7 days of Passover, leavened products cannot be found in your home. So it is, you cannot see and it cannot be found, right? So how are we going to achieve that? Which means you cannot own hametz, certainly not in your property, but you cannot own hametz even if it's in somebody else's property, in a non-Jew property. You cannot tell a non-Jew, take my hametz, it belongs to me, can you hold it for me for the 7 days? That you cannot, as long as you have ownership of it, even if it's a different property, you cannot have it. And the second one is you cannot have a non-Jew hametz in your property either, right? Unless that non-Jew has rented that space from you for his hametz. Otherwise, a non-Jew cannot tell you, can you keep this hametz for me? It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to me, not to worry. You cannot. So hametz cannot be found in your property, and hametz cannot be seen in your property. So what do we do with all the hametz that we have accumulated throughout the years? You know, sometimes the best thing, really the best thing would be to rid of all the hametz, that we should have no hametz left whatsoever in our property or in any other person's property if it belongs to us. However, sometimes we have very expensive hametz, like, and by the way, drinks are also hametz, like whiskey, vodka, gin, and many other cocktails that might have a product of this flours of the 5 grains that has become hametz, that has leavened, also have to be removed completely and disowned on Passover. So if you have an expensive Blue Label Johnny Walker or anything like that, or even other products, like I said, gin, vodka, and things like that, they're all considered hametz. You have to get rid of them. So as I said, since the expense might be great to throw away all of them or even to give them as a gift, we have our sages created what's known as a mechirat hametz, the selling of the hametz. It has to be a bona fide sale where we sell our hametz to a non-Jew, to a Gentile. It has to be a bona fide sale, and we sell the hametz itself. And I hear some people, sometimes they like to sell their pots where they have hametz. You cannot sell the pots, because if you sell the pots, now when you buy them back, you need to take them to the mikveh, to the tevilah, those pots, as there is a special mitzvah that any utensil that is used with food, with alimentation, that is owned by a non-Jew, once it becomes owned by a Jew, it needs to go through a mikveh. So therefore, we sell only the hametz. Not only we sell the hametz, but we also rent. So nowadays, what we do, even we sell the hametz, we put it aside in one closet, we seal that closet so nobody can reach it, or even in our freezer, we seal usually a one section of our freezer so nobody can get to them. But it appears that it's still in our property. And we said, even though the hametz doesn't belong to us, it cannot be in our property either. So what is done, and that's why this sale of hametz can only be done by a rabbi who is versed in how to sell the hametz. Nobody can sell their hametz, like go to their neighbor, hey, unless you want to give it the hametz completely give it to them, they give you real money for it. Otherwise, the best thing is to do it through a rabbi who knows how he does the selling. So you have to sell the hametz itself. The rabbi also rents all the locations that you have your hametz in your home, that you have sealed it. And also he rents a space for the non-Jew, so that non-Jew can take the hametz anytime he or she wants to come and take them from the house and assess the price of it. So if you want to sell your hametz, you need to do it through a rabbi who is knowledgeable on how to sell the hametz. You cannot do it yourself. Now that we have sold the hametz, preparation for the home and Pesach, and how to enjoy Pesach a la Sephardi. So, of course, we have already cleaned our homes. We eliminated all the hametz in it. We cleaned all our utensils and surfaces, or that we are not using them. Now, I know many people say, I'm going on a program, I'm going to sell my whole house for hametz. I don't need to clean it. That is not correct. The house still needs to be cleaned. The hametz in it still needs to be sold or discarded, because again, it's in your property. No matter if you're not going to be in that property, but it is your property. So you cannot sell your home and all the hametz in it, because we know that that's not a bona fide sale. Nobody's going to sell their condominium might worth a few millions of dollars, or the house that's worth also a few millions of dollars for $10 or $100 to a Gentile. That's not a bona fide sale. That's why you need to clean your house, clean your apartment, clean your condominium very well, put the hametz on one side, sell the hametz of that's in there, even if you are going away for a Pesach program. Now, how do you enjoy Pesach a la Sephardi? I remember once my mother-in-law said, the best way to enjoy Pesach is to go on a Pesach program. The second way, I would say, do it the Sephardic way if you are a Sephardic Jew, because it's infinitely easier than the Ashkenazi Jew customs and halachot and laws for Pesach. And aside that we Sephardim can eat any other grain except those 5 grains that have leavened. We can eat beans, we can eat sesame, we can eat rice, we can eat corn, and most Ashkenazim cannot eat any of those grains. So they are very, very limited in their diet for Pesach. It's mostly potatoes and meat and fish and chicken, and that's it practically. Sephardim can eat practically everything. There are different Sephardi communities that they may have more tailored to their community. Some Sephardi communities don't eat rice. Many Moroccans don't eat rice. Some don't eat beans. Many of the Syrians, sometimes they don't eat beans, and so on and so forth. So each one should follow the customs of their community. But generally speaking, all legumes can be eaten by Sephardim, except those 5 grains that we mentioned that they have not leavened yet. Now, there are several methods of kashering utensils. If you have utensils, the best thing, again, is to buy new sets of pots, of dishes, of silverware, of serving pieces. Anything for Pesach should be new, and keep it from year to year, and do not mix anything from what you use during the year. However, if you are unable to purchase a whole new set of dishes, silverware, and pots, and things like that, then we can take those utensils that have been used in Hamas during the rest of the year and make them kasher la Pesach, make them kasher. There are three methods of kashering utensils. And the principle is kebol'o kach polto. What's kebol'o kach polto? Which means the same way that the utensils absorbed the Hamas, that is the way that that utensil can spit it out. This is a scientific explanation, no heebie-jeebies. It's a real chemical, biological, and scientific explanation based on thermodynamic rules. So here we go. The first method is irui. Irui is we take boiling water, hot boiling water, and we pour it over certain surfaces. I'm going to explain it in the next few numbers. What utensils can be used for irui. Pouring hot water. This is the lowest level of kashering a utensils. The second level is hag'ala. Hag'ala, basically we take a big pot, we put water in it, we boil the water, and we have either stones or metal nails in them, in that water, to keep it boiling all the time. And we take the utensil that we want to make kasher. We usually do not use it for 24 hours before, should not be used, should be cleaned completely. And now we take that utensils with the water boiling, we dip it like a minute or so, and then we lift it up and we put it under cold water. That's hag'ala. That's hag'ala, dipping in boiling water. The third level, which is the strictest one, libun. That's when we fire torch, or we take the utensil directly onto the fire. That's a direct fire. So these are the three methods of kashering. I'll take questions after. If you have, we can explain more if you need more explanations. Now, what needs to be kashered? What utensil needs to be kashered? Mi kasher la Pesach. So basically, all utensils that were used with hot food, but not cold or room temperature, need to be, if you're going to use them with hot food in Pesach, needs to be kasher. So for example, if you have a glass, a silver wine cup, right, that you only use wine during the year, and wine is usually not hames even during the year, you don't need to kasher that cup because you never used it in temperature. And why is hot important? Because we're going to learn now the material right here in number 14, where material, the heat expands them, and that's why. So what needs to be kashered? All utensils that were used with hot food. If a utensil during the year has been used only with cold food or only with room temperature food, that item does not need to be kashered, and it can be used on Pesach, even if you used it with hames during the year. As long as you did not use it with hot food, then you could use it on Pesach. What material can be kasher? So we have three types of, there's material that can be made kasher la Pesach. There's material that cannot be made kasher la Pesach. And there is material that does not need to be made kasher la Pesach, and it can be used. Let me explain. So what material can be kashered, right? Metal utensils, right? Any pot, silverware, any utensil that you use with food that is metal, right? You can make it kasher la Pesach. Wood utensils, right? Wood also. Any spoons made out of wood, plates out of wood that use them in hot food can become kasher. Hard plastic utensils, likewise. Silverware, not silverware. If you have those stirring spoons or forks or anything like that made out of hard plastic and were used in hot food during the year, you can make them kasher la Pesach. Stone utensils, again, plates or anything like that made out of stone can be made kasher. And let me explain why these materials can be made kasher. Because all of these materials, scientifically, if you heat them, they expand. Once those materials expand, they have pori, right? They have a lot of porousness in them. Those porousness, once they expand in the heat and you're cooking something hames, then the hametz is absorbed into those materials. I don't know if you have seen train tracks, metal train tracks. You usually, when they finish one track, the next one is slightly distanced. They're not exactly put together. Why is distance? Because when the train passes, it's hot, it expands. Now, if those two materials, the two which are metal, are put together like that, built like that, once the heat expands, they buckle up. So this just to teach us that metal expands with heat. Wood, likewise. I am sure many of you have experienced during the summer with the heat, the doors in your home or to your bedroom, sometimes they're not as easy to open and to close like during the winter. During the winter that it's cold, then the wood gets smaller, but contracts. But in the heat, the wood expands. Likewise, plastic, very known, and also stone can also expand in heat. So those materials can be made kasher for Pesach. Now, what material need not be kasher for Pesach, even if used in hot food? Now, certain utensils that you have, that even if you use them in hametz, you can use them during Pesach time. For example, glass, or the brands of Pyrex, Corningware, Archrop, Luminarc, right? All of those, why they don't need to be kasher? Because glass, it requires at least 1,000, if not more than 1,000 degrees rise to expand. Where a metal, boiling point is already expandable with the metal and the other material. But glass requires a much, much higher, where you never cook with 1,000 degrees. You cook maximum 450 in the oven. So therefore, glass, Pyrex, Corningware, Archrop, Luminarc, and of those glass utensils do not need to be kasher. What they need to is you need to clean them very, very well and try to remove the film, usually that there is film around them. If you cannot move the film, maybe you should not use it. But if you can, then you could use it without making them kasher. Likewise, cups and any serving pieces not used with hot food, we already spoke about it above. They don't need to be kasher. Why? Because they never expanded to absorb the hametz. Silver pieces, decanters, wine holders, etc. All of those that, again, you did not use with hot food or even hot drinks, then they don't need to be kasher. You could use them during Pesach. If you have decanters, however, that were used with whiskey or gin, and the smell of it still remains there, may as well use a cleaner decanters for wine. Now, there are also utensils that are made out of certain material that cannot be kasher, cannot. And the reason why it cannot be kasher, for example, earthenware, clay, china, pottery, porcelain. Why? Because the material is very porous. It has a lot of porous in it, a lot of holes in it. And the holes are very big. And once they absorb the hametz, it's very difficult to spit out the hametz. So the only way to make any of this material kasher la Pesach is you need to burn it completely, reshape it into a new utensil. So if you have earthenware, plates, serving pieces, if you use them in cold, only in cold, then of course you could use them in Pesach. Again, because cold does not expand. But if you use them hot, like your china dishes or any serving pieces, earthenware, pottery, that you use them in hot, those cannot be used in Pesach at all. Only in cold. If you use them with cold food, then you could use them in Pesach. Otherwise, you cannot use them. Now, let's see what utensils and what kashering method can be used or should be used. So we spoke of 3 kashering methods: irui, which is pouring hot water, right? What you need that to make kasher? What utensils or what areas? Tabletops, for example. If you, by any chance, during the year put some hot food directly into the tabletop, not with a pot, but the food itself, or fell into the tabletop or the countertop. So all of those, because they were not being boiled at that time. By that time, the temperature is less. And the tabletop, again, if it's made out of glass, then there is no need to kasher. If it's made out of metal or plastic, right, or any of those materials that do expand, or stone, then the only thing you need to do is pour hot water on it and immediately pour cold water after it, and you clean it that way. Of course, the tabletop, the countertops need to be cleaned before, have to be cleaned. Kashering a utensil or a table or anything like that is not an excuse not to clean it before. They have to be clean before you kasher anything. So tabletop, countertop, you could just pour hot water in it and clean it that way, after cleaning, and make it kasher that way. You don't need to use any aluminum covers or plastic covers or anything that you have seen in many houses where they cover everything. That is not needed. Once you just do the iru, if you're not planning to pour boiling water on it, you just clean it, then you probably need to put a cover. Otherwise, you don't need to. Serving plates that were not used with hot water, were not used with hot, or if you use with serving hot food, but not boiled on the fire, then again, pouring hot water on them would be fine. The plata on Shabbat that you could use it on Pesach. You need to clean it very, very well. And then you could pour also hot water on it. If it's made out of glass, then you just need to clean it and nothing like that. The kitchen sink, you don't need to put any insert in the kitchen sink whatsoever. You just, again, clean it well and pour boiling water around it, and that should make it kasher. Now, what utensil you need to dip into boiling water? That's the second method. Pots and their covers. Why? Because they were on the fire with water inside, and when you cooked silverware that you stirred the pot with it, or you ate with it the hot food, serving pieces, stirring pieces, meat grinder part, if used with hametz, then you take the parts and you dip them. And that's, as I said, you have the boiling water, you dip it in, less than a minute, you take it out and you wash it in cold water. And lastly, of the methods of kashering things is libun, which is fire torching. For example, skewers. Why skewers? Because usually skewers, you have it directly on the grill on the fire, right? And if you have used hametz in them, with them, as you grill, then they need to be put directly on the fire to basically burn them. Grills, right? If you have a grill, it needs to be cleaned up completely and put on the fire. And baking pans also, because as they have direct contact with hametz for cake or cookies or anything like that, the best thing is to have fire, either pass them over fire, or if you have a torch, you're doing them that way. Just a few more things. Yeah, dishwashers, for example, cleaning, they have to be cleaned, right? And then run it one cycle with detergent. That makes it kasher la Pesach. Ovens, either cleaning or self-cleaning ovens, or you need basically, if it's self-cleaning, let it run one cycle of self-cleaning. After you clean them well with the detergent, and then let it run at the highest degree for 1 hour inside. The fire will make it kasher. Convection ovens, like regular ovens, microwave ovens, slightly different. You need to clean it very well, because sometimes when we use the microwave, food explodes or blows up, and then pieces of food are stuck in the ceiling and we don't see them. You have to look very well. So you need to clean the oven manually first. Then you put either a glass of water in a utensil with detergent in it, and you let it run for several minutes until there is kind of boiling, if not boiling, at least heat and steaming of the microwave. That makes it kasher la Pesach. Juicers, usually you don't need to make them kasher la Pesach, because the only thing you're using is fruits and vegetables, unless you use bread or something hot that's hametz. Then also you take the pieces and you boil them. Other than that, you don't need to. And the last one is the unique occurrence. As this year, we have the unique occurrence of Passover on a Saturday night. In the last century, from 1901 to 2000, it happened 10 times. From 2001 until 2099, it's going to happen 6 times. This year, and the next time will be 2075. So we have 50 years to get ready for another occasion. So therefore, because Pesach is Saturday night, things change. Bedikat Hames is done now 2 nights before Passover, will be done Thursday night. Mechirat Hames, selling of the Hames, should be done Friday morning, because Saturday morning we cannot do the sale. Biur Hames, burning of the Hames, also it's done on a Friday morning, because on Saturday we cannot burn it. The fast of Bechorot, it's either done on a Friday or Thursday, and the Siyum for the Bechorot is also done on a Thursday or Friday. The rest, I will not tell you. I think I could conclude here, and then if you have any questions, I'm ready.
Okay, so we have some technical questions. First, please do put your questions into the Q&A or into the chat. I've been monitoring both. So if you want to stop sharing your screen though, so we can see you more, Rabbi Abadie. So then.
Yes. Oh, yes, I'm going to stop the sharing, I guess.
Yeah.
How do we do the screening? Stop here. Okay.
There we go. Now we can just see you
that?
better.
Okay.
Okay, so first should be a fairly easy question. Can glassware be used right after cleaning?
Yes. Yes, it can.
There you go.
Yes,
I thought that was
can.
an easy one.
Yeah. Like I said,
next.
glassware does not need to be kashered. If you clean it very, very well, you could use it.
Next question is, because of the uniqueness of this year, at Kiddush of Shabbat Pesach Eve, what kind of bread should we use for hamotzi in our kosher Pesach homes? Fried matzah, matzah ashira, chalot in the backyard.
All right, you saw it said you saw my my handout. It says alternative 1 and alternative 2. So there are 2 ways. It's I have it all written down. I could be more than happy to pass it to you, because you're going to hear it. You're not going to keep it. It's very complicated. There's step by step what to do, when, how, and which way. So I'm not going to spend the time to explain to you now, because it's going to take the whole time. What I can do is, Drora, I could send it to you, and then you could send it to the people. Maybe I could have it here. Can I attach something here?
If you have it, I mean, you would have to know how to do it from there.
Yes. Okay. Let me see. All right. Let's continue with the next question.
Yeah, because I can send it, or if you email it to me or WhatsApp it to me, I can put it in if you want. Another question, and I kind of answered it. I think you need to clarify a little bit. When a box says contains wheat, but it says kosher lepesach on it, how do you know it's okay?
Matzah contains wheat.
Right.
As I said, that means they took that wheat, they made it into a flour, they made it into a dough, they kneaded it, and they baked it less than 18 minutes. So if it's a bona fide certification, then you have to assume that the wheat that it has in it is kosher lepesach. But if it does not have a certification, then you cannot rely on that.
Right. That's the
Yes.
And then he said, or she said, if you could put the list on the screen, we can copy the screen, but that's okay. I'm going to email it. That's okay.
A list of what?
Of what you were saying about the.
Yeah, I'll send you that. I'll send you that too. I'm going to send those 2 right now.
Yeah, and then I can put it in.
Yes.
Susanna, I'm not sure I understood the question. So if it's still a question, either I can allow you to talk, or here, I'm going to allow you to talk. So if you want to ask your question out loud, or if you want to put it into the comments, that's fine. And I want people to understand that some of what we talked about today is really a distinction between the Sephardi rites and the Ashkenazi rites, and what you were talking about in terms of all the lining and everything is very much still practiced in Ashkenazi homes.
Yes, that's why I said how to enjoy it a la Sephardi.
Right. So yes, I just want to make sure that people, you can't get in yet. You should be able to speak. Your microphone is on, Susanna.
Oh, okay. You can hear me? All right.
Yeah.
So you were talking about what makes chametz, those grains plus water, but not juice or milk, or so juice has water in it, milk has water, and even wine has water in it, but it's also got alcohol. So that might.
Right. So like all the commercial juices you cannot use because they all are mixed with water. You are correct.
Right, but any pure juice contains water. Milk contains water.
if you juice your own grapes, or you juice your own orange, and you juice your own whatever other apple, that water and that is not a problem. It's only the commercial one, because I know the commercial one, they water down all of those juices with actual water. So if you use the regular water, excuse me, the regular juice that you juiced yourself, is not a problem. As long as you don't add any water to it, is not a problem. Again, amongst Ashkenazim, some of them are strict on that, but the halacha, it's very clear on that. It's not, it doesn't make hametz.
Thank you.
That's a good question, because yeah, I don't want you to take a Tropicana juice or
Oh.
any of those commercial
But
juice and make your
you
own
take it
matzah
off.
that way.
If you take an orange and you juice it, it has water in it.
It has liquid in it.
It has
That's
liquid.
water.
It has liquid.
It's H2O.
Liquid. It doesn't have H2O separated than the liquid of the orange itself. It has liquid. It has orange juice, which is liquid, but not H2O actually.
So thank you. That was actually a really good question. Thank you,
Yes.
Susanna. And I put into the chat, before we sign off, I put into the chat the document that Rabbi Dr.
Yeah, I'm sending you the
Abadie was
second.
doing.
I'm going to send you now the outline of the class, so that way you could have that too.
Excellent. So I will leave it here in the chat and say at this point, thank you very much, Rabbi Abadie, and thank you all who came and who participated. And we look forward to seeing you next week as well.
Okay, so any more questions, or that's all?
That's it. We try to end on time, and maybe
Okay.
somebody will send, if there are extra questions, I will have them for next week. So
Okay. All right, I just sent you the outline of the class.
perfect. And I am going to add it here as well. So those who are still here.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay.
If I don't see you next week, have a Pesach Kasher V'Sameach, but Rabbi Abadie, I will definitely see you and hopefully everybody else here. So
Take care.